on it. Do you know what I mean? So my core argument is that the universe, because you're saying things imploded, yeah.
As far as I know, I'm not
But I'm
fully
saying,
aware of
where
it.
did the things come from? Because it's all nice to say that, look,
Just throwing words out there.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
basically what it is.
because we're just following this whole concept that, look, the Big Bang Theory. But have we looked into it? Science says. I'm like, what does science say? So I'm here to, like, more to actually get people to think, and this is the argument the Quran makes. Like, did the universe make itself? And that's a logically impossible, because it means that something didn't exist and then it
And
came
just
into
did.
existence
Yeah.
to create itself, which doesn't make sense. So we didn't make ourselves. The universe didn't create itself.
But then, I mean, faith will tell you that we didn't just sort of appear from single-celled organisms and whatever else. And that's the difference between faith, I
By the
guess,
way,
and...
I'm not even making the argument.
Okay.
My argument is about where did the universe come from? And if something can't come from nothing, then my argument now, my claim now, is the universe came from something all powerful, outside of the universe, with intelligence, with will, that caused the universe into being. Yeah? And the reason I make this point is because the Quran gives me a 4-line definition of God in the Quran, chapter 112, where it says, say God is uniquely one. Yeah? Self-sustaining, eternal. Doesn't have offspring, nor was he born, so is uncreated, wasn't born, and there's nothing equal, nothing comparable to God.
And he's everywhere all at once.
No.
Omnipresent.
No,
No?
that is a Christian narrative.
Judeo-Christian.
Yeah. Which leads to pantheism, and in Islam, we're saying that, look, God is outside of his universe. Yeah, I don't want to go too deep into theology,
No,
so let's just leave it on that basic things that outside of his universe. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well established upon his throne. And then as soon as I say that, other questions arise. So I just want to first build the foundation, which is that there's good reasons to believe in a creator, and I would argue that's more logical and rational to believe in a creator than to believe something came from nothing.
Also easier.
Not really easier.
I mean, the
'Cause
faith part
there's-
isn't easier, but it's
I
easier
think
to...
It
From a
depends.
human perspective, it's easier to just say somebody created us, because then we have the answer that we're searching for. You know?
I would say, depending on your disposition, it's either easier or more difficult, but it's definitely more healthier. It gives you a happy quality of life, believe in a creator, less mental health.
Well, that's something that I do 100% agree with. I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy called Jordan Peterson,
Yeah.
but I mean, he's agnostic, I believe. I'm not too sure. But
Nah, he's a Christian.
he's Christian.
Yeah.
But one of the
But he's a
things that-
strange Christian.
He is odd. Yeah, he's odd.
Yeah.
But one of the things that he says, which I really do agree with, is even if you don't believe in God, if you act like there is a God, you're going to have a better quality of life. You know, like if
Yeah.
you behave as if you're being watched
Yeah.
or being judged, or
Yeah. Which is interesting, but I would take it a step further and argue that, let's just take a step forward actually, sorry. This gentleman's got himself in a situation,
he's in a bit of a predicament, isn't he?
but his cheekiness paid off. But I would say that, look, if there's all these benefits from believing the creator, I would go a step further and say, look, let's take the time to verify if there's a creator. What
Can't be
is
verified though, can it?
I would say that you can be.
You can be.
I have good evidence to believe in a creator. Objective, verifiable truths. For example, my evidence is the Quran. Now, what would you need from a book to believe it's from God?
I need it to be handed.
What's your name, by the way?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Ridwan.
Ridwan.
Yeah. I don't know why I hesitate. Actually, no, figure out my own name.
Yeah.
I'm going to fulfill the prophecy. You need it to be handed to you, here you go. It's met your criteria. Anything else?
Yeah, but you're not God.
Oh, it needs to be handed to you from God.
Well, I mean,
You didn't specify. You kept it terribly vague.
What's that religion? Oh God. Mormons. They believe that somebody literally just found two. I don't believe in it, by the way, but somebody found two stones with stuff inscribed onto it. But I don't believe that for a second.
Okay. Now, let's keep this conversation to stuff that you do believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now, you wanted the Quran, handed to you. Now, I would argue that even if God handed it to you with such a vague understanding, like you haven't even defined God. Like, how would you know God's handed it to you?
I don't know if you can.
Yeah.
I don't believe it can be defined.
I would say let's first verify the book and then use the book's definition to define God. Yeah? Or you could use prophets, but while we're here, this is the living proof. You wanted something tangible, yeah? Because we started talking about science.
No.
So this is physically here. So I would argue for this to be from God, it needs to be perfectly preserved. Yeah?
Of course.
The message needs to be perfect. Yeah? Which is a bit subjective, I guess.
It is subjective, especially when it's translated into English, because it's from. Well,
let's talk about things which are objectively true. Yeah. So the message has to be perfect. There can't be any contradictions in it. There can't be no errors in it, no mistakes in it. I would say it has to get it right. The Quran has prophecies come true. Yeah. Talks about subjects. Has a profound knowledge on it that it's not possible for someone to have known this information 1400 years ago, especially unlettered man from in the desert. So those are my criteria for me to believe this is from God. Now, if it meets those criteria, would you be inclined to believe it? Because the Quran makes the argument it's from God and God will preserve it. And it says if you have any doubt, bring something like it. So bring something that's perfect, something that doesn't have any mistakes. The linguistic miracles in the way you use the Arabic language. Yeah. I don't often lean on that because it's a nuanced point, and you don't speak Arabic, and you know what I mean. So these are. Huh? I assume.
Yeah.
I assume. I speculate. Yeah.
But if you say somebody 1400 years ago living in a desert couldn't necessarily write it perfectly, how did the Egyptians make the pyramids?
What's your point, sir?
Sorry, I'm just saying, because you said it couldn't. Something like, how would you expect somebody who's living in a desert 1400 years ago to have this knowledge? Yeah. There was all different types of knowledge there. Like
but on all different subjects.
Yeah.
So right now the Quran talks about history, gets it right. Talks about science, gets it right. Yeah. Talks about like the water cycles, and it talks about embryology, and it talks about the moon having reflected light. It talks about how we're gonna die and our soul, our body's gonna turn to dust, and God's gonna bring us back to life down to the tips of our fingers. And now we learn about fingerprints, which every individual is different.
Unique, yeah.
Does that make sense? And unique. So I think, like, look, when it comes to the Egyptians and the pyramids, that's one element of it. I'm saying the Quran and Islam is holistically comes as a perfect, complete way of life. Does that make sense? Down to how we should do business transactions, how to keep good ties with family, how to run, because the Quran comes in a combination with the Quran as well as the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad. Yeah. So it will tell you a complete way of life down to cutting your nails, to how to run an army, to how to do business transactions, how to treat your spouse, how to, do you know what I mean? All of these elements, how to even wash yourself when you use the bathroom. Yeah? And I'm thinking to myself, that's what we need from a religion or a complete way of life from God, because we should know how to do everything. Does that make sense? In a perfect way, and that's what Islam comes with: a holistic, all-encompassing, no nonsense kind of complete way of life. How do you feel about that?
I agree with you. I agree with you. Just like from exactly what you're saying there, I know quite a few Muslims. I've got Pakistani cousins, half Irish, half Pakistani. It's unusual, but so they follow Islam, you know. So I'm open to it, and I'd like to read about it, but I'm just not a religious person.
That's what I'm trying to motivate you, because I got a feeling
I understand, yeah.
you're gonna take the Quran, you're gonna read it, but how do I make you passionate? How do I make it like, no, this is as soon as you get home, or you're gonna read a page before you go to sleep? Like, what do you need from it? Like, how?
I don't need anything for that. I love to read anyway, and it's something that I am interested in, if not just for the sake of knowledge. Just if that makes any sense, just so I know. Like, so next time you ask me this question, I'll have a bit of a better answer for you.
Yeah, because I feel like, look, more fundamentally, it's about the Quran helps us to connect with the Creator. Yeah, so it gives us an understanding of the Creator. Yeah, Allah. The names and attributes of Allah. Allah being uniquely one. Allah being the most loving, yeah, the all-knowing, the most just, the most wise. So then when we see the world, it helps us to put things into perspective, because we're understanding God's action through his names and attributes. Yeah? And I think, like, what ends up happening is, if we live our lives through our subjective experiences, through societal norms, then, like, we're living a purposeless life. Yeah? And I would argue that, look, the universe didn't come by itself. It's not accidental. There's too much design for there not to be a designer. Now it's about actually saying, wait, what does the one who created everything want from us? And wouldn't that creator of all things give us perfect guidance? And that's the kind of motivation I'm trying to give you with the Quran. Because an example, like, when the Quran talks about embryology, it uses the word alaka. Yeah? This word has 3 different meanings. All 3 different meanings is applicable to the embryo. Yeah? But it goes through our evolution of our knowledge.
No problem.
For example, alaka means something that clings, a blood clot, and leech-like. Yeah? Now, the embryo, all 3 of those apply. When 1400 years ago we saw it, and we thought, okay, the baby is growing, it's like a leech because it's taking the nutrients from the mother. Yeah? Now we look at it through a microscope and we see that it actually looks like a leech. And it's like, these information was given to Professor Keith Moore. Yeah? And he's like, look, it's not possible for anyone to have this information 1400 years ago without microscopes. So this must be for a revelation from God.
That's an impressive one,
yeah. And the miraculous nature of the Quran is, it talks about these things and it doesn't make a mistake. There's no like, oh, it's got majority of it right. I'm saying no, it's got everything right. And hence, that's my evidence that it's from God. So, you're not religious, but do you believe in a God?
What?
You don't believe in a God?
I'm agnostic, really. I don't really. I'm neither here nor there, because I don't possess, excuse me, enough faith to be able to say one way or the other. I just don't know one way or the other. And I'm a bit. If I don't seize, like, we'll go around in circles now, because if I don't see stuff for myself, I find it hard to.
Do you have a great grandmother? How do you know?
I guess otherwise I wouldn't be here. I know where you're going with this. I've never met her, but I know she was there.
How? You have no evidence of it.
No, I know. That's why I know where you're
There's no DNA. There's nothing tangible you can use. Yeah, it's based on
there is DNA.
not her DNA. It doesn't exist.
I mean, yeah, of course it does. Because
you don't have
can
don't
look
have
back-
her
you
body.
can-
It's decayed. It's gone.
Yeah, but I'm saying like I can look back to on my family tree and see where I'm from originally.
Not
and that
her
sort of thing.
DNA. There's,
Not her. Okay, not hers personally. Maybe.
yeah. So if you're able to accept that, then when you look at the signs of God in the universe, right? Because God in the Quran used the argument that look at the creation and the signs of the Creator. Yeah. So why can't you use that same logical inference with the creator of the universe? Because
Question.
so I want to pose that with you and create awkward silence for you to give me
It's a
a
good question, man. I can't answer that. I can't answer it, but it is a very good question. So
And I think you need to reflect on that and think to yourself that that level of skepticism, why don't you use it on a day-to-day basis? Does that make sense? There are things you take on testimony. I'm actually giving you something that's tangible that you can actually verify more than your great-great-great-great-grandmother. Does that make sense? Because, like you said, you're here, so you must have had a great-great-grandmother. And I would argue you're here, so there must have been a creator. The universe is here, because you can't give me a single example of something coming from nothing.
no. Just from what I've read about, like you say, single-celled organisms. But then again, I've never seen it myself. I didn't see it.
No, but they wouldn't even speculate in regards to where did single-cell organism come from. So it's giving you from this point about the evolutional stages, yeah. But does it make sense? Have you heard of Richard Dawkinson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote the God Delusion.
Yeah. And it's interesting when you look at some of the stuff he's said, right? I don't know if he's written it. He's staunch atheist, doesn't believe in God. When he's pressured and he's asked the question,
used to.
right? I think he's had a very bad traumatic experience with
From
Christianity. Yeah. So then he would argue that life came from aliens. Have you heard him say that?
I haven't, no.
You can Google it, find it on YouTube. There's 2 separate videos I've seen of him actually saying
That's ridiculous.
he's willing to accept that there's intelligence from aliens, but not a creator God.
I 100% agree that there's intelligence elsewhere in the universe. I mean, I've never seen it, but like I said, that's the same question that you just asked me. So how do I know if I haven't seen it?
Yeah.
But he's an interesting guy. Some of the things that he says doesn't really make sense to me either. So, very articulate though, and his arguments can be quite persuasive if you're that way inclined, I guess.
To be honest with you, I see him doing a lot of red herrings. I've lost interest in him now. But I didn't actually see him have a conversation with any Muslim academics who could challenge him on that. And I'm like, so you're in your echo chamber, being listened to other people who follow your beliefs, but then you're not able to substantiate your beliefs. So it's just like, when you get challenged.
One of the things that I don't like about him though is he's quite rude about religion. You know, he's not very respectful at all.
He's not, and I think that's the technique he uses, because just because you can be quite vulgar or rude and insulting, it doesn't make what you're saying right.
No, exactly.
Or what they believe any wrong.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Exactly.
So my thing is, look, I believe in angels. Yeah. I believe in miracles. Yeah. But I haven't used any of those arguments to convince you of a creator. I've kept our conversation based on logic and rationale because I thought that's where you want to come from.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So then it's like him trying to criticize Islam using angels. I'm like, go to the root of it. Does it make sense? Like, and if I had a conversation with him, like, I don't think he'll be able to answer a lot of my questions.
But also, I don't think you want to have a conversation with somebody who's that, like, vulgar is a good word to use. And I've read The God Delusion, and to be honest, I enjoyed it from the point of view of, I find that point of view interesting, but at the same time,
Did he make any compelling arguments?
how loud can you shout? That's what it seems to be, shout,
Yeah.
rather than actual compelling arguments.
Yeah, there you go. I've gone through people going through it. I haven't read it myself. I wouldn't waste my time. Does that make sense? I don't respect him enough.
I wasted a week on that. But
So, yeah. So, I would say that, look, what's your... Sorry, brother. Just... He's advertising his t-shirt.
oh yeah.
Maybe this side now, other side please.
Yeah. Speak to the brother. Brother Ashik.
This side problem.
Yeah. No, speak to the brother here. I'm just having a conversation.
I need to go and get some food.
I'm going to let you go.